It does not yet mean that you are back in a relationship and that everything's okay and that you washed over it. That's not at all what it means. But forgiveness is something that you can offer to someone else. And in that process, you're freeing yourself to be able to move on with what God has next. And that's the next piece I want to talk about here is the third part. Move on better. It's not just about bringing it to God. It's not just about offering the forgiveness, which is so important, but it's about changing the soundtrack so that we can actually move on in our life, not forever defined by this situation or by this person or what happened to us. The goal is to move on. And forgiveness is really saying, I'm tearing up the bill. I'm tearing up the debt. I remember having our church, that when I started a church, we borrowed some money from a relative, and the church, the relative gave some money and then lent us some money for a project that we needed, and we were paying back on that loan as we could, and it was a great help to us. And at one point, my relative sent a letter back with our full capital that we still owed, and it just said across it, forgiven. Forgiven, and it just brought a new meaning to that word, forgiven. Like, no longer is that connection there. No longer is that, there's no obligation from that relative to us and from us to them, and it's just that forgiven. I've tear it up. I don't expect or need anything back. The debt, the price has been paid in full. I'm not going to seek anything else, anything more. I'm forgiving you. I'm moving on because I need to look forward to what's next in my life. And this is the beautiful picture of redemption, is that God takes the hurt, He takes the pain, He takes those things that we've experienced, and He says, you don't have to stay there. I'm going to redeem it. I've purchased it. I've paid for it. And now you can go into a new future together. And so why would we stay in that place of saying, I just can't let it go? Because as long as you're saying, I can't let it go, what are you doing? You're holding on. You're holding on to that very person, that very thing, that very pain, and you're never going to move forward because I can't let it go, and you're trying to move forward in your life. I want to see what God has for me. I want to go forward. I want to be better. I don't want to be bitter. I want to be a victor. I don't want to be a victim, and yet what are you doing? I can't let it go, and you're wondering why you can't move forward because you can't let it go. To be able to say, I'm letting go. I forgive you. I'm moving on. I'm not going to try to collect the debt. I'm not going to collect on anything. I'm moving forward. Redemption. Man, Jesus, after the crucifixion, after his death and resurrection, man, think about how he could have gone back and annihilated his enemies. Come back and just be like, oh, it's payback. He showed love. He showed grace, this winsome spirit. He rose above, and he became the victor. He showed what it looks like to rise above the wrongs and the injustices. How do you move forward? How can we demonstrate to the world the power of God's transformation? To take our anger, to take our pain, to take our bitterness, our hurt, our rage, and for us to say, you know what? God has freed me from that. He's given me a peace. Yeah, that was horrible. That was bad. It was awful. I'm still paying the consequences of that, but it doesn't have a hold on me anymore. I can move forward. What can't you let go of? Who have you not been able to forgive? Bring it to God, be real with him, and then offer that forgiveness. Fill in this sentence. Jesus, you forgave me. I can forgive. What goes in that line? If we struggle with not just putting something in that line, but the statement, we may have trouble with that first part. And maybe today we need to be reminded of, Jesus, you forgave me. My sin, my wrongs, all the ways, God, that I continue to do things that dishonor you, ways in which I'm not living in right relationship to you and to others, where I've hurt others, but God, you continue to forgive me. Can I offer that forgiveness to somebody else? Stop thinking you have that other person in a prison. Let yourself out of that prison. Start by offering forgiveness, saying, Jesus, you forgave me. Help me to forgive. And you may have to do it over and over and over again, right? How many times, Jesus asked, how many times am I supposed to forgive somebody? Up to 7 times? No, 70 times 7. You got to keep forgiving, and sometimes it's just something you got to do within your own spirit. You may never verbally talk to that other person. It may not be safe for you to talk to somebody. Maybe you need to offer forgiveness to somebody who's not even alive anymore, and they still have you in a prison. But you do that between God, before them. If you have the opportunity, you share that, and you say, I forgive you, and experience that freedom. I pray that.